This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It's Manchester United's biggest game of the season. Failure in the League Cup came first, then in the UEFA Champions League. Premier League performances have trended very much in the wrong direction. Can the FA Cup be United's saviour? Liverpool come to Old Trafford with 9,000 away supporters, having already won the League Cup and with their sights set on going to the last in every other competition too. They have everything to play for. We have just this, so we better play up for it. A very warm, although slightly nervous welcome to the Manchester United Weekly Podcast with me, Harry Robinson, and Jack Tait is with me as always. We're previewing United Liverpool today. It's the first Old Trafford FA Cup meeting between these sides with fans in attendance since January 2011 when Kenny Dalglish returned to the Liverpool manager's hot seat on an interim basis. Daniel Agger tripped Dimitar Berbatov in the opening minute. United scored the penalty through Ryan Giggs and Steven Gerrard was sent off after half an hour. United went through as 1-0 winners. Before that, it was one magical January day in 1999.
Beckham takes it. Oh, it's York! Cole and York combine! And Manchester United, with 2 minutes to go, have levelled it. Can't enlighten the folks at home. Solskjaer!
Ole provided the taster for what was to come 5 months later at the Nou Camp by scoring in injury time. Dwight York had scored in the 88th minute, and from there they rode the wave of momentum all the way to the treble. And before 99, well, 1921. All of that is to say these games do not happen often, and I can't wait. Jack, it feels like it could be, and I'm not saying it will be, given the respective form and performances and quality of the two sides, but as I was saying to a friend the other day, you have to be optimistic and excited before these games because you can't be optimistic and excited after United have lost. So it feels like this is a game with the potential to be one of those memorable, magical Old Trafford days or nights that really do live long in the memory because of that defiance and atmosphere. But United have to be up for it. But do you think it feels like it could be one of those games?
Yeah, it absolutely feels like that. I think there's something... Even in a bad season, there's something that feels different about playing such a big rival in a cup game. They just come around so infrequently. The fact that it's a complete one-off, I think especially when you're coming in as what would on paper be the underdog, which obviously United are, given how the two teams have played all season. I think there's sort of an added bit of hope and optimism that this is just a complete one-off and anything could happen. Obviously anything can happen in any game, but the fact that it's in a cup just makes it feel completely different. It's a different occasion. And like you said, this is United season on the line here. We said it before the game against Forest a couple of weeks ago. We obviously ended up coming through that. We said at the time, if you go to the City ground and lose, all of a sudden the rest of the season feels like it could be similar to the Ranić year where, you know, the whole team is completely flat. The stadium is flat every week. Yeah. The fans feel, you know, what am I doing here? And it's the same with this, really. You know, we're now a couple of weeks later, we're in the same situation, quarterfinal of an FA Cup, not only the chance to knock our biggest rivals out of it, take away any chance that they have of winning another trophy, but also quite literally, I think any remaining hope or feeling of investment, I think, from fans in our season is on the line in this game.
Absolutely. We would have felt this a little bit when we were growing up. I think it's often been the case in the United-Liverpool fixture, and it's this weird thing, isn't it, where very rarely do the two clubs compete at the highest level at the same time. You've got the 2008-9 season where Liverpool really did compete with United and Arsenal for the title race. It happens occasionally, but it's very rare that United and Liverpool the two most successful teams in England are the two best teams in England at the same time. You've got United's dominance of the 60s, Liverpool in the 70s and 80s, and then United again in the 90s, 2000s, early 2010s, and then Liverpool again with City in the late 2010s and 2020s. I think every generation of each set of supporters has that kind of realisation that, we've become Liverpool now for us, and when they would have had, as we were having our success in the 90s and 2000s, we've become United. And what tends to happen when one team is at the top and the other team is trailing slightly behind is the one that trails behind can have these very memorable days, particularly in the Cups. And United have had that way into the past with Liverpool. Liverpool had that sometimes in the 2000s where they could upset the apple cart. And there was a cup win they had in 2006, I think, at Anfield. And it happens in the league as well. It's funny. It takes some getting used to, doesn't it? We are on the other side in the other position now, aren't we?
It's been a position that we've had to become all too familiar with, unfortunately, with both of our big rivals recently.
Yeah.
And potentially Arsenal now kind of joining that table as well. I should apologise, by the way. I was at a stag do all weekend, hence why my voice doesn't sound the best today, but I hope it's not too bad. Yeah, it's an odd position for a generation of United fans that were just not used to this at all. I think for you and I, Harry, we were a little bit too young to... Obviously, we remember United being very, very dominant when we were growing up, but we weren't old enough to be sort of match-going fans at that point. But I think especially for people sort of 5-10 years older than us who were really living, and obviously older than that as well, living through United's really dominant period as match-going fans and experiencing this feeling of going to Old Trafford and feeling so confident before every single game. Anytime you played a Liverpool or a Man City in the Cup, it's almost like, this is the potential banana skin. We can't let this team, who quite frankly are nowhere near us, have sort of this one game over us. And that is now the position that we find ourselves in, which is sad to think about, but it also makes games like this feel even more exciting for us.
Yeah, it might be sad on a bigger picture point of view, but the point is that constantly throughout the history of these two clubs, this kind of fixture has happened, and it often gives the underdog or the less good team at the time that chance to kind of make something of their season. So yeah, I'm just flicking through some old results. Liverpool beat us at Anfield in the 5th round in February 2006. Peter Crouch scored the only goal of the game. You've then got a couple of years later where they had that very frustrating run where they beat us at Anfield in the league, then 4-1 at Old Trafford in the league as well. But that's when they were a proper team, to be fair. But you've then we kind of avoided the banana skin in January 2011 when they were in a really bad place when Doug Leash had just come in as interim again. But then we go to Anfield in the 4th round in 2012 and Dirk Kuyt scores a late winner after goals from Daniel Agger and Ji-sung Park. So I'm excited. What game for you sticks out in the past at Old Trafford in terms of... Because I think there are some brilliant and amazing league games. Maybe the one that probably sticks in my head that I've been to would have been, I think, the very start of May 2011, and Hernandez scores after 35 seconds against Chelsea, and it kind of effectively confirms the title. And I think Weird Vidic was ruled out with injury, but it kind of didn't matter, and that it basically confirmed the title. So you do get them in the league, these incredible atmospheres of kind of celebration and excitement. But I think it's particularly in cup games, whether that be domestic or European. Are there any that really stick out for you? And it's because it's not just about winning, it's a wider context of the game. So one of them, even though it was so ridiculous at the end, is the 7-1 against Roma, because in April 2007 we'd gone to Roma in the first leg a couple of weeks before. There'd been loads of fan trouble. United fans had been terribly treated by the police, and Roma supporters. We were trailing 2-1. And so this was my first game at Old Trafford. And so I remember it very fondly. But United go into that game needing so much. And it was still this young team that was having to prove itself on the biggest stage, even though they'd won, even though they were en route to a title. So and then that turns into a ridiculous 7-1 victory, but it's the context to it before that made it so incredible. But are there any other games that really stick out to you? That kind of sense of defiance and where the crowd has really dragged, where there's something magic in the air, I think.
It's a good question. I'm going to have to think of some, but I think generally I go back to the start of the year that we won in 2008 when we won the league and the Champions League. I think it gets forgotten that we started that season quite poorly. I think we drew our first game, and I think we had a couple of losses after that. And I can't remember who we played, but our first home win of that season, I remember watching that game and just thinking Old Trafford sounds different today, because everyone knew, we finished the previous season well. Everyone knew this team was rounding into something that could be quite special, and it was sort of, will the younger players like Ronaldo and Rooney be able to kind of carry this team forward? And you started that season, it was really a doubt. I think we might have even lost to City very early on, and this was just around the time when they started pouring a lot of money into the team. I'd have to quickly go back and see who we played, but our first home win of that season, I remember just Old Trafford sounded different that day, and it sounds different in certain games that it makes your spine tingle, even if you're not in the ground.
Yeah, that season started with the penalty shootout winning the Charity Shield against Chelsea, but then a home draw against Reading, 0-0, 1-1 away at Portsmouth, then a 1-0 loss away at City, and then finally a first home win against Spurs. Nani scored the goal at the end of August. And then United went on a run of beating Sunderland, Everton, Sporting Lisbon, Chelsea. Did lose to Coventry in the League Cup, though. I'd forgotten that one. Yeah, but then pretty much won almost every game until Christmas then, with a couple of exceptions, including against the biggest team. So yeah, you're right. I think the most recent one for me is Barcelona last year. That did feel, I remember going for a haircut on the morning of that. This was my final year of university, so I was living in glorious freedom, where it's so different, I think, when you're younger and you go to up to kind of university basically, and these evening Champions League games you look forward to the whole day, and kind of you can get to the pub at whatever time you want, depends how big the game is. And then when you start working and suddenly it's you're looking forward to it in work all day, but you're kind of distracted and a bit antsy, and then finally you run to the pub whenever work finishes at 5, half 5 or 6, and it's a much shorter kind of build up time. But that one, I was still at university, so you have this just amazing kind of whole day of build up, and it was a sunny day in Manchester. It felt like we were in Spain, and there was so much confidence around the team at the time. It was, and then it was brilliant. I watched that with my brother and my dad. That felt pretty special. We'll talk about a few more, but I think the difficulty is now in terms of this game is that Barcelona game, for example, came in from a place of great belief. A month before you'd beaten City. This team hasn't quite generated that belief this season. Hasn't really at all. So how do you, because I was kind of hoping as the players walked off against Everton for a really defiant. I remember games last season, any game we were at home before a big game, and it would have happened the kind of final. It would have happened at the end of that Barca game before the League Cup final. It would have happened before the League Cup semis. It kept happening throughout the season. As the players would come down the tunnel, there'd be a kind of like, come on for the next game. Way days before. And I was kind of hoping for that this game after the game against Everton, and it just wasn't really there. So there are some games where the crowd will take the players, and there are some where both will do the same. I think in this case, I don't know whether you'd agree, but it needs the players to kind of go first. There will be a good atmosphere before, regardless. It's United, Liverpool, it'll be fantastic. But to really take it up to that level where it becomes hard to play in for the opposition, and United's players can kind of ride the wave to victory, I think it has to come from the players first in this instant, because that belief isn't there from the season so far.
Well, yeah, and actually you saying that has reminded me of, I had another one in my head, but reminded me of another game where I think Old Trafford was in a very defiant mood, and that was actually the game against Liverpool last season at home. Third game of the season, obviously just lost to Brighton and Brentford. But in that game, it was very similar to what you just said, which is that the atmosphere was good at the start of the game, as you'd always expect for a United Liverpool game. But there was a lot of trepidation in that crowd after seeing United come off the back of an awful season, start the new season filled with hope, have it shattered in the first two games. And I remember twice in the first 20 or 30 seconds of that game, Dalot came in straight from the kickoff and absolutely smashed through, I think it was Luis Diaz. And then Martinez did the exact same thing, came straight through the back of Salah. Yeah. And I think that one was given as a foul. But those two things immediately, Old Trafford just went, hang on, they're up for it today. Like, let's go, sort of thing. And it's going to need something like that, because these players haven't given the fans quite enough to have faith in them. I think at this point that they're going to be up for a game like this. We've seen too many times this team fall a little bit flat in big moments. But I think if you show anything like that, even it doesn't have to be a huge tackle, even if it's a really intense press to start the game and you force Liverpool to kick long and maybe kick out
echoing
of play.
The words. Yeah, you're echoing the words, but with greater clarity than Wayne Rooney. I've just been watching an interview with him and Rio Ferdinand on United's website, where they say, how do you get the crowd going for games like that? And Rooney says, it doesn't just have to be a big kind of crunching tackle. It can be kind of a long busting run forward to press the goalkeeper. And you're absolutely right. It can come in so many forms. And I think that's what gives an element of confidence, is the fact that we know there are players. Yes, we're missing Martinez, and that will be a massive help. But there are players in Dalot, in Casemiro if he switched on. But this is also a concern, because kind of Casemiro, as he played against Everton, might do this in a way that gets himself sent off very early on, because he's not quite at it. But overall, you have players in this United team who do have that ability to contribute those moments early on. And that, so much of this is about mindset and belief. And I think what also gives you confidence is they had the right mindset, if not quite the right quality at Anfield in December. They did all right at the Etihad before losing it a bit, but with that home support, maybe you could have it.
Yeah, look, it's been, clearly the results haven't been what we wanted still in these big away games, but it has been better than last season. And obviously that's a very, very low bar to set, but United have been better in those games. I think the approach, the mentality, the mental strength has been better in those games. We haven't folded in the way that we did last year. Again, despite still losing at Anfield, the Emirates and the Etihad. But that, I think, shows you that this team can produce even if things don't start to go their way in a game like this. Obviously, the golfing quality is tough, but you've also got to remember Liverpool, with a lot of injuries at the moment, albeit a couple of players are starting to come back, like Salah and Darwin Núñez, are about to play. We're recording this on Wednesday. Are about to play tomorrow in the Europa League at home. But United are going to have a full week off, well rested. Again, obviously dealing with our own injuries, and we'll probably have to play pretty much the same team that we played against Everton, albeit maybe Højlund will be fit and able to come in, but not sure if he'll be ready to play from the start. I think United have got to drag Liverpool into a dogfight and make them feel all of those minutes that they've got in their legs and what is a small squad at the moment. Yeah.
It's also interesting. I was just thinking, we haven't really had any of these games this season. I'm just looking back through United's fixtures. Now, we had games against Tottenham and Villa on Boxing Day and Spurs midway through January, but they're not really comparable. Bayern Munich was comparable and the players really let us down. It was such a meek way to go out of the Champions League. And that's a really bad sign. That was a terrible game. And they let the game kind of play out towards a 1-0 defeat. And that was really disappointing. So they can't do that. But before that, you've also got City in October. But there's very few, I think that's it, because we're still to play Arsenal at home. We're still to play Liverpool at home in the league. So this is, whereas last season there were so many home games that it kind of got into a rhythm of belief at home. Obviously we lost our unbeaten record at home, that didn't help, but do you know what I mean? Like, this is a first for quite a while, so maybe I'm underestimating just how good it will be at home. I think the other thing that, if I'm looking at optimistically, this United team have been guilty of dropping to the level of the opposition throughout this season, last year as well. But that does mean that they can rise to it as well. So, and we have seen that at times. But it's also about getting that belief back and reminding Ten Hag, reminding these players that they beat this Liverpool team. They've beaten Barcelona and Arsenal and City all in the last 18 months. He has to generate, and I think it matters in his press conference as well. And this is something he's been pretty poor at in terms of engaging United supporters to try and create a better atmosphere. Alternatively, or conversely, it's something that Klopp's always been amazing at Liverpool. And it's something that Ten Hag's probably lacking a bit, that kind of rallying cry to supporters. But it also has to be a rallying cry to players to say, you're good enough to beat these, and you got a 0-0 draw away at Anfield. Just go out and prove a point and make it a kind of us against them mentality. And so, yeah, so much of it's about mentality in these games, isn't it?
Yep, and that's what United thrived on for a lot of last season. I think this is the other thing that he's got to remind these players, not only the results, but we thrived on this kind of siege mentality last year. We always use the phrase backs against the wall. That was when we were at our best under Ten Hag last year. It wasn't always pretty. It's not going to be pretty in this game either, because we don't have the players to do it at the moment with the form that we're in, the system that we've got, and the amount of players we're missing. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to look nice. It's going to be a battle. But we proved that we can win in those types of kind of dirty games against the best teams, some of the best teams in the world last year. And that, to me, is what Ten Hag has got to remind these players. This isn't a group that is radically different from that set of players. We've shown it in little periods of games, and if you're going to string one together, this is it. The stakes couldn't be higher for this game in terms of being the latest stage in the competition that we can play at Old Trafford, playing against our biggest rival, with really the rest of the season resting on this game. If you're ever going to be up for a game as a United player, this is it. And I think it's also where you want someone like a Marcus Rashford or a Bruno Fernandes, players that have been at this club for a long time. And I single out Rashford in particular as someone who obviously grew up in Manchester and knows what this rivalry, what occasions like this mean, to step up and lead this team and show the other players what it means to be a Man United player playing at Old Trafford against Liverpool in the quarterfinal of an FA Cup. Because there aren't that many games. If you think about it, there aren't many games at Old Trafford that come bigger than this.
Exactly.
Champions League semi-final would be the only other one that, in terms of a one-off occasion, that comes close to this.
Yeah, it's very true. Place for Wembley on the line. Yeah, I was just looking at the team that beat Liverpool 2-1 in August 2022, because I was suddenly remembering that Luke Shaw didn't play in that game, did he? Because he was dropped after the first 2 games of the season. So realistically, you're actually... Yeah. And Casemiro didn't play either. At the time, it was a team of De Gea, Dalot, Varane, Martinez, Malacia, Eriksen, McTominay, Sancho, Fernandes, Elanga, Rashford. I don't think anyone would say that Sancho not playing this time is a major miss. I would say the only major kind of player for that game you're missing is Martinez now. And to his credit, Lindelof it actually does have that ability to kind of get the crowd going with a big challenge. I've seen it several times in the past. If Varane can play as he did, Varane had a really bad autumn this season, if you remember, where people were starting to questioning whether his head had gone, and there were all those links to Saudi Arabia, but then had a brilliant performance away at Anfield. If he can have a game like that, if McTominay can really step up, how does Kobbie Mainoo cope with a game like this? I don't know. He's never played. We'll see. He did very well at Anfield. That's a great sign. And then you're looking for it's kind of what we've been looking for a long time from Bruno and Rashford. You're looking for disciplined passion, because if it's still 0-0 and United have been frustrated for 70 minutes, it has to carry on. Those standards have to remain the same. It can't be getting frustrated and showing that frustration. It's got to be continuing. We'll talk some tactics in a second, but just in terms of those Old Trafford games, I brought a list of a few together. Barcelona 84, I think, is probably the most famous of all. And one of our patrons, Tony Ryan, gave exactly that answer when we asked him. He said, "I can't recall Old Trafford ever being louder, more raucous or more defiant. Maradona was no match for Robbo. Every section of the ground was jumping from well before kickoff to well after the final whistle. We got in just before the gates were closed with thousands locked outside. I don't know what the official attendance was, but I've never been to Old Trafford and felt more packed in that night. I don't think anything will ever compete to Barca 84. It's got this kind of mythological status in United folklore. And it's always this funny, that question, like, what if you could go to one United game that you weren't able to go to, what would it be? And mine wouldn't be Barca 84, but that would certainly be in the discussion. One of the ones I probably would go to is Sheffield Wednesday. The game played 13 days after Munich in February 1958. If you're talking about a crowd having an impact on players, then that is arguably even more important than Barca 84. This kind of, not even kind of, just this random selection of players, a couple of survivors, a couple of proper kids, and a couple of players who just had no right play for United, buoyed on to reach a FA Cup final by United. United then beat AC Milan at home as well in that season. It's incredible. I think Liverpool in the Cup in January 99 is certainly one. Inter in the Champions League in March 99. That Roma game I mentioned earlier. I think Barcelona in the 2008 semi-final, certainly. The one that failed, I thought this was interesting to point out because it doesn't always work. The crowd can be as good as you like, but sometimes United don't win. Yeah. Was Real Madrid in February, or would have been the start of March 2013 when Nani was sent off. I remember that's probably, it's really hard to tell like what's the loudest game you've been to, but that certainly felt amazing to 12-year-old me. That's probably that's the most excited I've been for a game before it happened.
That was the one, when you first mentioned the question, that was actually the game that I just couldn't get out of my head, because I think that's the loudest. Especially, I remember in that game, I wasn't there, so you could tell me better than I can, but I think what was different about that game was I remember it being loud on TV like half an hour before kickoff. It normally doesn't happen very much at English grounds at all. And I remember it just felt completely different than other, even big Champions League nights at Old Trafford. And like you said, it ended up not working. But as soon as you asked the question, in terms of atmosphere, that is one that always sticks in my mind.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing with these games, is that kind of thing has to come organically from supporters. I'd be surprised if there's kind of been no forward planning about how to generate an atmosphere at this game. The problem is relations between the Red Army, the club, Youth Supporters Club. There's a lot of internal politics going on. If that wasn't happening, you might get everyone coming together to go, right, how can we make this place just impossible to win at for this one game? And I'm not sure whether that has happened. We'll soon find out. Yeah, it's difficult. Shall we have guess the player clue one before we talk team selection?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm setting the clues this week, and the first one is quite simply, I won every possible major domestic trophy within my first 4 years at United. Wow.
Every single domestic major trophy, that is.
Yeah, not including the Community Shield.
Did you win the Community Shield?
I can't reveal that. I'm just saying I'm not including it as a major domestic trophy.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to need some time to think. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk tactics and team selection.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
I saw a fair argument recently that while United have conceded the second most shots by Sheffield United in the Premier League this season, which we've spoken about, and is on the face of it a very bad thing, those shots have been very low value. So lots of shots from outside the area, difficult places to score from. And that is not just true with your own eyes, it's also statistically true and backed up. And the argument is that Tait might be allowing lots of these shots because it plays to the strengths of kind of box-happy defenders like Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans. First of all, do you think that's true or fair? Second of all, do you think you can get away with that against Liverpool?
Well, I think it's somewhat fair that the shots we've been conceding have been fairly low value, but I don't think it's fair to say that it means it's not a cause for concern. I think it absolutely is a cause for concern, but in some ways, I think the concern is actually more in how little ability we have to control games. And I think the second half against Everton was actually a great example of that. We tried to slow the game down for most of the half, and we succeeded in that to an extent. I think we did manage to slow the game down and really take the sting out of it. Everton, there was that one moment where there was a knockdown and Dobbin put the ball across the face of the goal, and other than that, didn't really have any big chances. And it felt, I mean, we were saying just before we recorded, even inside Old Trafford, you felt it was fairly comfortable, and yet we weren't ever really able to keep the ball during that half, even despite trying to slow things down and not really trying to move the ball forward. I don't think we ever once progressed the ball into Everton's half with control. Anytime we did manage to get into Everton's half, it was on the counter-attack with, very risk and reward type passes. My concern is, I think against good teams, it's very, very, very difficult to survive when you're letting them see 20 shots, 25 shots on your goal, even if they are low value shots. I mean, go look at the Manchester derby a couple of weeks ago. If you want to talk about low value shots, I mean, Phil Foden's shot probably had an XG of, 5% maybe. But good players on good teams.
Yeah, the only really good chance the City had, they missed with the Haaland.
So I get it. And obviously, I'd much rather have a team have 20 really low value shots than 5 of those Haaland chances, let's say, in the derby. But I do worry that at some point, it's just on the law of averages, if you're giving teams enough opportunities to get shots on goal, they're going to take them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it is true that we saw a great performance from Varane in so many fantastic blocks and interceptions and headers away at Anfield. We've seen some really good performances from Johnny Evans recently. And Evans is another one who has that, what I called the Fellaini paradox with Scott McTominay. And it's less true with Evans, where you're very happy that he's doing very well, but you wish United didn't have to use him. But he is doing really well. I think he has limitations in terms of passing out that can really hold United back compared to Martinez, but so do all United's defenders compared to Martinez. In terms of on the ball, what we saw at Anfield was some really good distribution from Andre Onana, where he began by playing it short, drew Liverpool in so that they would press, and then started going longer, whether that be driven along the floor or balls over the top. And that's where we managed to get some of our best chances. You had the really good Højlund chance, where I think Onana plays it into midfield to McTominay and then maybe goes to Anthony and Højlund. I can't quite remember, but something like that. You'd hope to see something similar, but is there anything you'd change to the performance at Anfield, which was far from perfect? It wasn't great, and we relied on Liverpool being below par as well, but it felt like it had the foundations for something that could work.
I think I'd like to see us be a little bit more aggressive in defence. I think we were understandably willing to sit very deep in that game and really soak up a lot of pressure. And I think we'll have to do that this time around too.
Yeah, although I definitely changed the start, because the start there felt like we were going to get beaten 7-0 again.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've said we need a quick start here. Anyway.
It was about 8 corners in the first 5 minutes or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
But I think, for me, I want to see us be a bit more aggressive. And I mean that both in terms of getting a little bit higher up the pitch, but also being a little bit more intense in the way that we tried to defend when Liverpool have fairly controlled possession. This is going to be a team, and is a team that's going to be filled with quite a few young players playing at Old Trafford for the first time. And I don't think United should shy away from trying to intimidate them and make them feel the weight of that night and what that occasion is going to be. If you can get into them early, put them under a lot of pressure, force a couple of mistakes out of them, all of a sudden, these young players have done very, very well. I'll say for Liverpool, they're good players. Just as Kobbie Mainoo went to Anfield and played very well in his first appearance there. But there is potential vulnerability if you can get at them early, force a couple of early mistakes, and get them thinking in their head, like, wait, there's a lot going on here. And so I think for me that would be the biggest difference. the path to United winning is still the same. We're not going to dominate a game against Liverpool as much as I would love us to do so. The way that we win this game is still going to be playing on the counter-attack. So for me, it's doing a better job than we did at Anfield at limiting the opportunities that they have to get very deep inside our penalty area, being a little bit more aggressive in defence higher up the pitch. And then the big thing, and this was, I think, for me, the most disappointing part of the performance against Anfield was, despite having the one really big chance with Højlund, we had so little quality that day when we won the ball back at trying to actually get it into the feet of those players that are so good on the counter-attack. I actually thought we were much better at it, especially in the first half against Man City a couple of weeks ago. That is, I think, where the biggest change needs to happen compared to the Anfield game.
Yeah, and actually, Rashford and Garnacho's quality on the ball against City was below par for their standards. And if they had been a bit better, we kind of we got the midfield and the defensive balls out correct that time, which we didn't at Anfield. So maybe finally it will all come together for this game with every part at once. Obviously, some of this depends on Højlund, who was missing against City, was good at Anfield, but he was missing confidence then. If he's back and can resume the confident play that we saw just before his injury, then suddenly there'll be a lot more. I think if the fans at Old Trafford see his name in the team sheet before kickoff, that will give so much more confidence, because he could, in the form that he found between the Anfield game and his injury, he could change this game. You said you'd read something from the Denmark manager that indicated he might be back.
Yeah, the Denmark manager said something along the lines of, we've been in contact with Man United and Ten Hag. We expect him to play in the FA Cup, and then we will see how he recovers as it relates to putting him in the Denmark squad for the international break that's coming up. We haven't heard anything official from Ten Hag. He seemed to suggest that Højlund was very close and that he would expect him to be in contention for the FA Cup game. I'd be surprised if he starts, to be honest. But if he is back and if he's fit, it would be a massive, massive boost to us. He's been very good in these types of games, just giving us a little bit of an outlet, being able to give us some respite. And I think, especially in the second half against City, I felt that we missed him. Like you said, I don't think Rashford and Garnacho had their best days on the ball. I think they were a little bit more wasteful than you'd want. I think Højlund can help with that and allow Rashford and Garnacho sort of take some of that burden off of them. They don't need to be the ones actually taking the ball down, slowing things down, getting us up the pitch. Højlund can take that burden, and Rashford and Garnacho can focus on what they do best, making those great runs in behind off the back of Højlund. If he can lay it off, either spin it around the corner or lay it off to a midfielder who can then play it through.
McTominay up front if Højlund's not fit.
I wouldn't be against it. I really wouldn't. I'd rather that than Rashford up front, to be honest.
Yeah, I would. Because then you can have... Rashford's had some really good games against Liverpool, and most notably, I think what must have been 2019, where he skinned Trent twice and scored two in a 2-1 win, but could have been 2-0. And he's always at his best in every game when he can run beyond whoever the striker is. And yeah, so you'd be best off trying to take advantage of that. Mason Mount and Aaron Wan-Bissaka back in training this week, which is very good. You think it's very, very unlikely that either of them would start this game, but possible. They have been back in training since either Monday or Tuesday. That's quite a lot of days to get back to. They'll obviously be fit. It's whether they're match sharp enough. Wan-Bissaka probably a little more likely than Mount, given the need for it, but also how recently he's played. Martinez, Malacia, still out. We don't know whether Maguire's fit, but I think it's unlikely. So probably Varane and Evans again, but they've had a pretty good partnership in recent weeks. I'd stick with that. Obviously, Shaw and Martial out as well. Liverpool, Matip out, Alisson, Jota, Trent, Curtis Jones, Gravenberch, Bajcetic and Thiago all injured. Ibrahima Konate missed the City game, but he could be back for that. Salah is back, so lots of injuries. So much this game will come down to individual quality, won't it, in terms of who steps up, and does Varane have a really good game of defence? That's what little things like that will really change it.
Yeah, I mean, the team, other than Højlund maybe coming back, pretty much picks itself with a lot of injuries, especially in defence. Varane and Evans actually is a centre-back pairing that I think in games like this actually works very well, because they're both dominant in the air, both had very good performances in sort of backs to the wall type situations that I expect United to be in for pretty large chunks of this game, I would say. Again, as much as I wish that wasn't the case. It's the midfield, again, that I sort of worry about.
It's also as you said, I think their passing out is a lot, well, compared to Martinez, is a lot worse. So maybe this is a game where Mainu starts a lot deeper to provide that that ball out, and instead you have Casemiro acting as the breaker up of play, but a bit further forward, which reduces the risk of him giving away the ball close to his goal. Also lets him have more of an impact on the game, and you have Manu in that deeper area. So you could switch up the kind of triangle midfield that Ten Hag's been using.
Yeah, 100%. It's been interesting. I saw Kane for United District did a little bit of analysis on Manu's role changing a little bit. He's been pushed a little bit further forward, which I'm actually not a huge fan of. At least with the other players that we have in that midfield at the moment, I think he's better suited playing.
Yeah, long term I'm a fan of, but now I'm not yet. Anything else before we have guessed the player clue 2?
I think for United, it's really a case of don't concede early, which is such a cliche, but I think it's true because if you concede early here, I think Old Trafford could go flat quite quickly, especially if the performance matches going behind quite early. And then like I said, the biggest thing for me is take the opportunities that we get on the break. We're going to get them. Even Liverpool at their very best, they give you opportunities on the break because they push so many men forward, especially the fullbacks both go forward at the same time. There is going to be space for Rashford and Garnacho to play in. And I think this is going to be a really, really big day for Fernandes and Casemiro. For Casemiro's faults on the ball, the one thing he is very good at are these first-time hooks, sort of in behind the defence, and they're often quite aimless. And when a team's defence is fully intact at the back, they never work. But in the case of Liverpool, when they push so many men forward, there is going to be space to just sort of hook those balls in behind and let Rashford and Garnacho run onto them.
You're making me nervous. Yeah, I just had a proper feeling of like nerves going through my body.
In a good or bad way?
Just the idea of Liverpool having so many men forward that you're talking about, and then us hitting them on the break. But I can picture them having so many men forward and standing there just going shit. But yeah, all of that joy is to come. Let's have guess the player clue 2.
Okay, so guess the player clue 2 is I scored for Liverpool against Man United during the 1990s.
I've got my answer here. I had the era, the United era, in mind already.
I wanted to make it topical, but there is more than one possibility.
I think there's 2. Is there 2 possibilities? Going with? Yeah, I've got my answer. Okay, let's have the academy briefing. Defeats for both the under-18s and under-21s last weekend, with the team selection proving the academy's development over results mantra is indeed real. The under-18s had a crucial game away at rival City, while the under-21s travelled to play Middlesbrough on Friday night. But even with injuries to several key under-18s players, some of the higher potential youngsters, like 16-year-old left-back Harry Amass, were promoted into the under-21s. That was Harry Amass's debut for the under-21s. Probably could have waited a week, but they went for it anyway. He played really well. And so did several of the under-21s, but they were 3-2 losers against Middlesbrough. The under-18s, meanwhile, without so many key players, fell to a 4-1 defeat against City, who conversely brought down more senior players for the game, including one who hadn't played at under-18s level all season. So different philosophies, different benefits, different drawbacks. Some would argue that United should prioritise getting this under-18s league title over the line because it's good to build into that winning habit. They probably still will. They're still some way ahead of City. Others would argue that what United do, which is development over results at every opportunity, and that for some of the players who played in the defeat to City, it might have been a useful learning experience, while for those who played in the under-21s, that would be useful. It's 2 different philosophies, both have their arguments. In other academy news, Sam Mather scored his first senior goal, earning Rochdale a point. He's one of 4 players out on a flexible loan move where he can train at United still and even play for the under-21s, but senior involvement with Rochdale will be prioritised. It was a tap-in after good movement from him and a great moment for him. We're going to go into a Patron Q&A. We've got 2 questions, one on the Old Trafford atmosphere, one on the Everton game, and then we'll be back for the end to guess the player, and we'll give our predictions for United Liverpool on Sunday.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, Jack, coming out of Patron Q&A, we've been talking about United Songbook, we've been talking about Ten Hag's tactics and lots of little things in between. Can I have, I have my guess. Can you guess the player clue 3 and I promise I won't change it?
I partnered Brian Robson in United's midfield and he would later sign me after leaving Liverpool.
Yeah. Wait, who did he sign him for? Oh, yeah. Okay.
I feel like I've used Brian Robson as a manager a lot in my guess the player clues recently. I've got to get more creative.
If Imagine United had him on Sunday, then we'd win. Without a shadow of doubt. I got convinced. I wrote a piece. I think I might have said this, but I wrote a piece about Brian Robson and his performance against Barcelona in 1984. I got as much as the archive footage as I could of that game. And you can't get it in full, but you can get it. I think there's a version which is like a 30-minute highlight package. And I tried to look at kind of every touch and the build-up and analysed it all in the way that only a sad person can do. But even like the look in his eye and the way he hands over the penalty, it's just the way he came out that night is just extraordinary. He just, the phrase "a man on the mission" kind of covers it, and the achievement of United to come from 2 goals behind against Barcelona with fucking Diego Maradona is a United team that wasn't that good. Yeah, is incredible. Robson scored 2, Stables scored 1. But yeah, that performance, he was just, I think within, I might put the piece on our Patreon so our patrons can read it, but I think it's within like 30 seconds, he just clatters into someone. I can't remember if it's Maradona or someone else. And it's that marker. It's like, right, we're going. And the atmosphere was already amazing because of the belief that United had managed to generate. The manager, Ron Atkinson, and the players in the way they spoke, and the fact that United conceded very late on at Barcelona, so there was still, they played okay, so there was still belief. But yeah, Robson just went at people and just covered the entire pitch that night. It's incredible. So he would be very handy to have. United don't have Brian Robson, unfortunately. We don't even have Roy Keane. There's no one quite in this United team who can do that. Bruno's the closest, but he's not anywhere near that level. But if he can have one of his great games, then we'll see. Your prediction?
My prediction is that United win on penalties.
Oh, fuck off. Are you serious?
Seriously.
I'm not. I get, fucking hell. That could send me over the edge.
You said I was making you nervous earlier. Now I've just sent you over the edge.
The Brighton semi-final was, but watching United in penalties is horrible. Watching any team in penalties is pretty horrible.
Yeah,
and I actually think I said after the Brighton semi-final to my mates and my brother, imagine if this was City in the final. But imagine if it was Liverpool. I can't, yeah.
I just think the game's got draw written all over it. I really do.
Wow.
And I can't bring myself to predict that we're going to lose to Liverpool on penalties. So I've got to predict that we're going to beat them on penalties.
I might have to call it a day if we lose to Liverpool on penalties. I don't think I could deal with that.
Have we ever played them in a shootout?
We've played very few shootouts in our history.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
I don't think so. With these things, I always, when we talk like this, I always think to the Super Classico between Boca Juniors and River Plate, where they played in the Copa Libertadores final. And no one can ever have any argument that is the biggest kind of rivalry game that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine being on the losing side. It's like United playing Liverpool in a 2-leg Champions League final. Just unimaginable. I'm going 2-1 United.
Okay.
And I'm going to leave you with one fantastic stat. Jurgen Klopp has only won once at Old Trafford with fans present.
Wow.
So that should give you some belief. And we have been truly shit for many of those years. Once, the 5-0, and that is when we were arguably at our worst. So as bad as we are now, I don't think we're in that state of mind. We could still lose 5-0 because Liverpool are a much better team than us. But that is the truth. And I'm just triple checking it to make sure it is true.
So United have never faced Liverpool on penalties. A little trivia question for you. You'll probably know this. Which team have United played in most penalty shootouts?
Chelsea. Community Shield 2007 and Moscow.
Both correct, but we've actually played them twice more on penalties as well. We've played them 4 times. Three of them were Community Shield. So 97, You got 2007 and then 2009 as well.
So have we played anyone 3 times?
Yep, Arsenal.
2005.
Yeah, FA Cup final. And then again, 2 other Community Shields, 93 and 2003.
Discarding Community Shields, have we played anyone twice? I can't think of anyone.
Don't think so.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, Middlesbrough.
No, they were the one I was thinking might be possible.
And we've lost both of them.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. We've beaten Chelsea on penalties in some big games.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost to Arsenal, but then we tend to lose on penalties to the kind of lower teams, strangely, which means we're going to beat Liverpool on penalties.
So up until 2008, 2009, we actually had a really good record on penalties. Since then, we've lost 6 and won 2 or won 3.
Wow. Well, who have we won? Rochdale, Brighton.
So yeah, we beat Rochdale, we beat Brighton, and so there's one, I'm on Transfer Market looking at this. It says that we drew on penalties with Sunderland in the League Cup semi-final in 2014. That's not quite right. It says it was 3-3 on penalties. I distinctly
remember losing that.
Clearly isn't right. Shootout. Well, then we've only won 2.
Yeah. I'm going 2-1. You're going United to win on penalties. Either way, I can't wait. And the answer to guess the player is Paul Ince.
Yeah, correct. Who was the other one that you thought was possible from the Liverpool clue?
Michael Owen, but he didn't win the FA Cup.
Yeah.
But he did win the Premier League and the League Cup. And he did score against United in the 90s.
Yeah. That's correct.
Is that correct? Good clues. Topical, good clues. Okay. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. It's been a delight. As I said at the start, you've got to be optimistic. You've got to be excited because you can be neither of those things if United lose. So enjoy it before the game. I hope you enjoy it wherever you're watching. And good luck, everyone. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Podcast Network.